Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Ron Stevens. This is Rock the Boat Radio and Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. I'm your host for the next 2 hours. It is Sunday, the 11th of February, and it's snowing, and it isn't that warm, but it is what it is. I got a very interesting guest coming on today from up near Thunder Bay, and he's going to be with us in a minute, and he's going to talk about some of the experiences he's had with the local constabularies over an extended period of time. It's like they take people and they target them. God forbid you should ask an intelligent question, and they target you. And it's only a small community of about 2,000 people. So we're going to bring him on and listen to his story and see if it's familiar to you, because it's happening to people all over this nation, all over the world, and it sucks. So I'm going to bring Andre in, and hopefully we don't lose him today, and we'll go from there. Excuse me.
Hello there, Ron.
Andre, how are you, my friend?
Very well, thank you.
Welcome to the show. Yeah, I was just explaining you're from up near Thunder Bay, and we've discussed this a little bit in the past. Some of the stuff that you've put up with up there, and if you could just give me your a little bit of your background and the start point and how long ago you got basically targeted.
So my background as an individual?
Well, yeah, if you wish, but I mean it's I don't like you're a tradesman, a salesman. Well,
no, just I don't know. I guess what people call a jack of all trades all their life. I worked for various corporations, oil field, and just close to 50. Later on in my life, in my earlier 40s, my wife and I came to the conclusion that she would be the bread maker of the family and go out and work, and I would stay home and just be here for a while, because my jobs always took me away for months at a time, which was getting to be rather hard on the family. You go to work continuously hard, never take anything back, because it's always taken from you.
Yeah, I hear you. Like I had a guy come in here from, I think it was Nova Scotia, of a rental house, and so like, how long do you want to rent it? He says, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks, maybe 2 months, I don't know, right? Because they never tell us. And so he got called up to the plant up here for a shutdown or whatever. But yeah, like he's on the road all the time, right? I mean, to come from Nova Scotia to here in Ontario for a couple, 3 weeks work, or he doesn't know, right?
Yeah.
It is not how we should be running this country by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think people understand how many people are on the road in this country, bouncing around all the time.
Yeah, it's quite high. Yeah, and being where I'm from, there's really not a whole lot of work around here.
Well, that's it, right? Like, I think the same thing with the guys in, Nova Scotia is not a big province or anything. And, if you're chasing a buck, you're going to have to go type of thing. And so you're on the road a lot, and it's got to be tough on the families. Has to be.
Yeah, most definitely.
So you're up in Terrace Bay, and everything's going along, and what is it you did that got them upset with you?
Well, when I was working out west, we'd have to stay in camps, there's camp jobs all the time, so you're living in the middle of the bush, and I started to realize, opening my eyes to how things were being run in these camps that we were staying in. They were like really policed. they're locked down. The police go through these trailers on a regular basis. They can go into your rooms whenever they want, check your shit.
Really?
Dogs going around, yeah, with the cops all the time, yeah. And you know, it was just a little too much for me. I didn't care much for it, so I packed it in and came back. And when I came back from out there, I finally noticed that, you know, the corporate community that I live in had contracted with Power Generation of Ontario to put smart meters on the houses in this town, which they never did in the neighboring community next door or the other neighboring community in the other direction.
And so what, that got you asking some questions, or? Have I still got you, Andy? We're having a problem here. You still with us, Andrew? I don't understand that. I do not understand why we keep losing him. I mean, have we got the Thunder Bay Constabulary on the line today, or what? I'm trying to get a hold of him again. If not, I'm going to have to try and call him. You there, Andre? This is irritating as hell. Says he's online, but I don't have anything. Lost him again. Well, that's an irritation. Let me see. If I call him in, I'm probably going to knock everything off of here. But I want to get this story. I know how much the smart meters cause me problems. Actually, the smart meters put me in jail, which is a little bit irritating. What the hell is going on here? La-di-da-di-da. And I put my back out real bad last night. And my sweetheart's sick with a cold. But other than that, I'm having a hard time hooking up with Andre. But other than that, everything's going pretty good. Now, how the hell? Oh, let me look down here. La-di-da-di-da. Okay, maybe I can do it this way. Right number. Well, this is probably going to blow everything off, but maybe I can do it this way. Oh, maybe it'll work. See if we get him on the phone. Anyways, I must be running some records here over at Facebook. Have I got you, Andre?
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what do they get a tag on your Skype or what up there? That's
Yeah,
weird.
yeah. They don't want me telling anybody anything.
Well, that's good. I don't think they can cut your phone off. No, I really want to hear your story because there's, these stories, they mean a lot because people got to realize that you do not have to be some radical nut bar to be targeted. You can be just a normal person that just asks a question, and if you don't get the answer, then you dig a little harder, then they come at you. I don't know if that's your experience or not, but I've had that experience.
Yeah, that's basically it. Yeah, so I've never had a problem in my life, except for maybe in my younger years when I would drink a little bit, have an impaired charge or something. But other than that, I don't do those things anymore. I'm old. I've got a family, man.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I'll continue on here, and I made my complaint to the hydro dude, and they didn't want to do anything about it. So I put an old meter back on my house, the old skate sharpening style that spins around there. And this went on for about a month until somebody finally came by my house, and it was probably like, it was close to 11 at night. It was a hydro truck, and they were trying to gain access to my property. And I wouldn't let them come by. And I told the guy, like, I got business hours, man. Just like you guys, 9 to 5. Come by here when I'm awake. I'm putting my daughter to bed. Mm-hmm. Next thing you know, here comes their hired help to assist them. Serve and protect.
We're here to keep the peace, boys?
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to gain access onto my property for over an hour to see if I had put a smart meter on or whatever the case may be. It was just like, it wasn't a good situation. And so from there on in, about a week or so later after that, I went to the local detachment and I asked what they were going to do about what had arisen on that evening. And, I basically got yelled at and, screamed at, stating, are you saying that we trespassed upon you, which pretty much it is. Anybody that creates harm and injury upon somebody else, it's a trespasser.
Right.
So that's where it basically ended up from there on in. I started writing letters to all the government agencies, which, in each agency is their own agency. They're their own private corporation. No other one can tell another one what to do,
Right.
So, there's nothing we can do there. You better try this place. Oh, sorry, there's nothing we can do. You better go here. Sorry, there's nothing we can do. You better go here. And it just carries on like that, right? And then from there, the ball starts rolling. They start, parking their vehicles at my daughter's school for weeks on end with nobody in it. Driving by my house, 20, 30, 40 times a day. This is just a small community. There's only a couple thousand people here, and I've known these people for 50 years. I know everybody here pretty much. Continuously going by, so I set up a camera in front of my house, and they have equipment that'll shut your cameras off now that, prevent them from taking pictures. Oh, yeah, absolutely. You can find them all over the internet. They start at a couple $100, range up into thousands of dollars, but I found it really funny that every time any other vehicle would go by my house, my tree camera would pick up theirs and take their picture. But when it happened to be a protect and serve vehicle, there was never any pictures there except for one that out of hundreds that just happened to be the tail end of the vehicle. Anyway, they set me up. Made a situation on the side of the highway when I was riding around on my bike and set me up and pulled me over and stopped transit on the Trans-Canada Highway for probably close to 40 minutes while they raped me on the side of the highway to make it look like I was, more or less attacking them, which wasn't the case whatsoever. And then I have witness to that, actually, and I have written witness statements, people that were standing around that noticed exactly that I was attacked by these people. And you know, within they immediately put me in jail, and within 3 hours, my name was slandered as a free man of society. On, you know, like 3 or 4 different papers, the television, the internet, some kind of a radical, which isn't the case at all. You know, all I'm doing is just like you said, just asking questions. You know, and they don't like those questions that you're asking, they're going to shut you down, and they shut you down really hard.
Yeah, that's
you know,
pretty much what they did to me.
Yeah, and it doesn't take much. You know, this is our tax dollars hard at work is paying these people to terrorize us. And it's a pretty bad situation.
Yeah, like I can't count the number of police that have been here over the years. It's just freaking ridiculous. And you know, I actually had the chief of police call me at home and tell me what my problem was, and that was that I was diametrically opposed to what 99% of the community said. I mean, this is ridiculous. In other words, you know, they tried to tag me as one of these free men on the land too. And, you know, I explained to them, like, that's not the case. And besides that, what is this that you're describing here? And I had a cop say, well, somebody that thinks differently. And that's basically all it is. If your thought process is correct and you're asking questions in that, which means they're not getting a free ride on bastardizing your community with these globalist agendas, then you have to think a certain way, or I guess it's a thought crime now. If you have the capacity to think, you're a danger, I guess, what they're looking at you as.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And you know, they certainly don't want anybody digging around for anything. And you know, I started digging into their rules and regulations and pointing them out, and where really I have no business.
It
doesn't concern me. Yeah, they don't like that too much.
No.
You know, so you know, and I strongly urge, you know, men and women to go ahead and look into your own communities and your towns and their bylaws and stuff, and to have a look at the name of the corporate entity that they're actually working under, because it's not really the pseudonym name that they're using, you know, such as, you know, whatever they call their city or their town at that particular time. There's actually a corporate name hidden behind that. And you know,
like
our business.
Our little courthouse over in Walkerton is 25 miles from here. Is I think it's 5 separate private corporations.
Yeah.
You know, people don't know any of this stuff, right?
No. Yeah, they're all like a little, I guess you'd call it maybe a pen name. Pseudonym,
yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and even our municipality is full of private little corporations, you know, who
yeah, that's right.
Employee might be the head of that corporation, like our
under a legal fiction.
Right. And yeah, I mean, if people understood how this thing's set up, you know, people say, "Oh, we're a sovereign nation." Good luck with that. You know.
No. You don't say like
there's no
the community I live in.
Anything here. You're company slaves, man. You know,
that's right.
Way to describe it. You know.
Yeah.
You know how they used to say back in the day, you know, like you work in a company town, be it a mining town or whatever, or a logging town, and you work in the company town and you live in a company house and you spend your wages at the company store. Welcome to Canada, because that basically describes what's going on. Yeah.
And
so,
you know. You know, I'm not too sure if people really got the memo on, you know, who the true operators of this corporate country are. You know, all these entities that we call provinces and towns is, you know, like I said a little while ago to you earlier, it's a massive deep state within Canada, you know, and it's owned and operated, you know, basically by a monopolistic private association called the Upper Law Society of Canada. And they commingle with other corporations, you know, and generally owned and operated by the Crown under a different name. Nevertheless, it's still commingling, they're taking direction from other private entities to create business utilizing private men and women as corporations in a legal fiction world, to create false business under assumptions and presumptions. It's false pretenses. Therefore, like I said, they're creating business where no business would otherwise be had, and that it's fraud and it's treasonous on behalf of the bar and the members that are publicly hired, elected, and appointed officials.
Well, and you hit it on the nail, right? What runs this country basically is a law society.
That's it, yeah.
And it's a separate society. The law society has nothing to do with you or me or anybody else.
No, they're unaccountable private association.
They're a private association, but they write all the law.
That's right, yeah, and they're associating violence with good faith.
Yeah. Well, I was looking at the OPP one time, and, it says the OPP, but that's not what it's known as. It says the force. This is the way it was written. It was one of the government documents, an act or something. And it doesn't say the OPP, known as the force. It was written down the force, known as the OPP, right? Mm-hmm. And if you go back all the way back to legalism, where it started in China, it is about the force, right?
That's right.
So they do whatever they want. You don't do what they want you to do, then they force you to do it through threats, intimidation, and beatings and jailings and everything else, right?
Yeah, it's collusion at the highest levels, yeah.
Yeah, and
it's very cowardly.
It's totally cowardly, but they created it, so they control it, and we need to break it. I mean, we most desperately need to break it, because they only have authority over what they created, and they can't charge a man or a woman. They don't have the capacity to do that. They can only control what they created, and they created the legal fiction. So, and then they tied it to you.
And they tied it to you.
Attempted to tie it to you, but it's all 100% fraud.
And the fiction.
Yeah.
Well, it could be understand what a fiction is. It's a ruse. It's an invention. It's a fabrication.
Right. It's the legal system is all based on what was that? It's all based on from the mind, their concepts that they make up.
Yeah.
And there's nothing real about them, and
That's
then
right.
they put them into law, but then they have the force there to force you to abide by what they made up. It's totally ridiculous,
It's
we
very
kind of
ridiculous.
the other day. We kind of lucked out the other day. We were going to go to Wagon to pick up a car part, and I told my buddy, I said, we don't have enough fuel in this thing to get there. So he went to pull a U-turn. We were only about a quarter mile out of town. He went to pull a U-turn back to town to get some fuel, and I'm watching this. I'm thinking, this ain't going to work. I'm waiting for him to hit the brakes and back up, but I don't know. You can do this in the summertime because it's grass, right? You can roll her a little bit into the ditch and go, but it was really greasy and it just sucked us in. We weren't going quicker, and it just sucked us in. So we're sitting on this, I don't know, about a 45-degree angle in the ditch, and snow's up to the top, up to the bottom of the windows on my side. And then Paul sees a OPP SUV coming in behind us, and he's going, "Oh shit! Don't need this harassment, right?" Because I can just see the cop. Oh, here's somebody I can bother, right? And so when he pulled in, he got off on the grease, and he's sitting on a 45-degree angle in the ditch. So we got out of the car, went over to see him. And we didn't have to worry about him then because he was too embarrassed to bother anybody. But, if they get an opportunity, they will harass the hell out of you. But the worst part is that, and I don't know if you know that in your own town or if you've had that experience, but, I actually had the mayor and the CAO call the police, send them to my house, a whole bunch of them, under totally false pretenses. Even the police said, I said, when did the police get involved in this? And they said, well, we're not. Well, you just said that's why you're here. So you're under false pretenses. But we chatted for a while, and turned out that they were there. The mayor and the CAO don't want me speaking at the council meeting, so they sent the police, of which they hired through contract, which is totally against the law, to come to my house to try to have me assessed as a threat so they could ban me from attending council meeting, which had failed.
Yes.
But this is how bad it is. And like you said, if they were putting you in the local papers and that and called you a free man on the land and stuff, right?
Yeah, and that was totally down the direction
of...
That was totally done at the direction of the mayor and the CEO here of the town council, who told the police to go ahead and slander my name as such, and I was told that by a lawyer friend of our family. So, and I forgot what I was just going to say. You go ahead, Ron.
Well, I mean, it's just. I just want people to know that like this is going on. Not against me and not just against this is going on against people all over this country, right?
All over the place. Yes.
Yeah.
So what they initially had done after all this harassment and stuff like that, and throwing me in jail a few times to get me to associate with their corporate entity crap, they went ahead and had a secret court case, which I have a recording of the court clerk stating that it's not even an Ontario provincial court file number, nor is it even a court file number. They wouldn't even accept my paperwork. I attempted to sue people on behalf of their breaches of faith that they had did, and it was totally not even recognized. It was thrown out. It was mocked. It was ignored. It was everything that you can possibly imagine under the sun to refrain from me moving forward in any fashion whatsoever, to get some kind of, equitable justice, if you will. But they'll stop at nothing, and then in their secret court case, they use threats of further incarceration if you don't give up whatever they want. And then in my case, they stole my DNA, right? And I'm not very happy about that. They're taking me away from my family. My father was dying of cancer at that time, and my wife is she's sick right now with cancer, and my daughter's small. And they're throwing me in jail, and this is at a very critical time in my family, where we all need each other, and so they utilize all that stuff against you, and it becomes really hard after a while, and what are you supposed to do? And then when they put you in a position where you can't possibly get out of, because you're just one man or a woman standing up against huge corporations who have unlimited amounts of money against you. When your pocketbook is just small, or they close off your accounts like they did for me. They shut down my bank account, preventing me from going anywhere, taking whatever money I had out.
Yeah, I've had different people tell me that. I mean, I got banned from the hospital for a year for asking some questions. That's all he was doing, was asking some questions. My father-in-law was in there and just asked some questions. And because your hospitals are all privatized now. People don't see, I don't think people understand that.
It's Crown operated?
Well, what they've done is they've sold off the management of the hospitals. It's managed privately. And that's why you have to pay so much to park at the hospital, right? They've turned everything into revenue streams. And, I wasn't even allowed to go see my wife's uncle, and he died in the hospital. I wasn't allowed to go and say goodbye to him, just because I'd asked some questions regarding my father-in-law's care. And they didn't like it. So, you can have these fluffy little conversations with all of these people, but as soon as you ask a hard question that needs to have an answer to, they don't want to go there.
No.
They don't want to let the cat out of the bag, so they just shut you down, right?
That's right.
It's quite irritating.
I got the head of correctional services out of Thunder Bay that's stating to me that, saying, I'm asking her, I'm not asking her, I'm telling her, you're committing fraud against me right now. You realize that, right? And, nonchalantly, yeah, and there's really nothing that can be done about that, and there's nothing that you can do about it. And, and she said a couple other things that I said, I had stated that was rather fascist and communist out of her. And she said, yeah, we live in a fascist communist country, and if I don't like it, I can pack my shit and I can find another.
She really said that?
Yeah, I have it on recording. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
This is someone at the corrections.
At correction services, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so I called CPAC or SPAC, the union that hires all the government actors. And I talked with their human resources department, and their comments were that we couldn't possibly tell on a union member. So, I really don't know where you expect to go with any of this stuff, basically.
Yeah.
So they shut me down there too. No outlets will touch you. Nobody wants to do anything. They're all scared, like you say.
That's what really amazes me is the fear factor, right? But how can all of these people be so damned afraid? I don't get that. Our forefathers weren't chicken shits. I don't understand it.
They're all afraid that I'm going to be some kind of a violent man, I guess, which in reality, I'm not a violent man at all. I never have been. I don't like violence. I don't like guns. I don't like hitting people. I don't like any of that kind of stuff, but I certainly will put a pen to a piece of paper and I'll open my mouth and I'll tell you how exactly it is, and if you don't like that, well, then I don't know what to say to you. That's not being very objective if you're going to, shut your mind and go hide somewhere, or,
No, it's absolutely ridiculous because you don't have to be that. You don't even have to be that bright to understand where they're trying to take us to. We're being marched off the cliff, basically. It's almost like, I look back at the war, Second World War. You'd see a movie or a newsreel clip or something where, they have a ditch dug, and they got like 100 or 200 people standing along the ditch, and you got 5 or 6 guys with single shot rifles, and the people just stand there and allow these guys to shoot and reload and shoot and reload until they're all dead. I'm thinking, where's the mindset there? There's 100 of you and 5 guys with single shot rifles. Run them, right? Because they can't win, right? Yeah, you'll lose a few people maybe, but you still are going to get these guys. But they just sit there passively and allow this to be done to them. And this is what I see in our whole society now. Everything is so passive that they can do whatever they want to you, and people don't come to your assistance. I'm sure you had probably, 3/4 of the town called you up and says, "There anything we can do to help and get these guys off your back?" I don't think that happened.
No, not a one, no.
No.
No, not a one, no. I had to, pretty much, I wouldn't say beg, but, come on, just do this. Just write me a statement. You were standing there witnessing what was going on. Write me up a statement. I got people that I've known for 50 years that wouldn't even do such a thing. Somebody that I thought was my friend or my family, and it turns around, they just turn around and walk away from you. So
yeah,
and that's their whole plan. I guess, to get everybody disassociated from you.
But maybe you got a better. Well, maybe you have a better explanation for it than I do. Like, I can't understand how these people can walk around and basically hang their head all the time. I don't understand that, and pretend nothing's going on. I don't understand how that works.
I don't know.
I just
have no
can't
idea.
figure it out. Like,
No.
you know, if you see someone being harmed, you have a duty to help them out.
Yeah, it's your
If these-
obligation from all of us.
Well, it is a moral man or woman, and the problem is we live in a legal society, you know, and legal is amoral, right? And legal is adversarial. So, you know, if your so-called system of law is adversarial against the people who live here, why would the people put up with that nonsense? You know?
Well, probably because they really don't know right now, not because they don't want to know. They're just not really forced into that situation at this particular moment in their time, possibly. And until they are put into a situation where they're going to have to open their eyes and see what it is exactly that's happening to them, I guess they're just going to remain blind up until then.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of hoping what's going on in the school system with the young children now is enough to open people's minds. If nothing else will open their mind, that has to open their frickin' minds. I mean, the children are being so badly abused in the school system now. I don't know how anybody cannot see that. You know,
and that's what bothers me the most is the children that are up and coming, right? And that's I think is one of their main brainchilds is to keep them dumbed down so they don't realize.
Well, yeah, they're waiting for the older generations to die off, and then they're going after the children hard, and then they're getting them all full of anxiety. So now they got to ramp up the mental health problem or mental health help to help all these children and young people who are suffering anxieties and that. And where did the anxieties come from? Well, the school and everything caused it. Problem, reaction, solution, right? So then they're going to give these children up till they're, 25 or something? Free antidepressants and that. Yeah, they want these kids coming now to never ever have the capacity to stand up.
Yep, that's right. Yep,
and
that's what we would be calling today's day and age of younger children coming up would be the indigos. I think we discussed this before because they're so intelligent that they don't want them to have the full capacity of their brain.
Who's this?
Ron, it's Helen. I had the plan to talk to you and Andre about something. In addition to this, I did not know, but...
Okay. Can you hang on a second, Andre?
Yeah, absolutely.
Have I still got... I think I have an ex-school teacher on the phone here who wants to get in on this. Hey, Alan?
Yeah, sure.
How are you? What? Right. Okay. Do you want to do that on the show? Well, like I got Andre on here, right? What? Well, that's it. Yeah. So, anyways, the question is, because I'm on air here, do you want to come in and join in on this for a bit, or what? All right, I'll bring you in. You can just listen, and we'll go from there. All right. All right. Okay. Well, this is a weird day.
Is it?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, I lost you at the beginning, and then we got you, and then Helen's calling me on the telephone and stuff. So she's in Calgary, and this is the important part. I think this is a really important part. What they did was they did this to the natives too, and people got to understand that because they use these same templates over and over and over again. What they did was they shattered the links in our families. Okay, like the families used to have your grandparents, your parents, the kids, and aunts and uncles, and all that kind of stuff. And that's how the knowledge and the moral guides stayed in place. And they split all this away, right? Took what was a normal process and destroyed it. And it really isn't any different than taking the native children and putting them in the state schools. I mean, this is the same thing here. They're taking the children and put them in a state school. Now, your child can come home at night, but the state has complete control over your child. Now, if your child comes home from school and say, "What did they teach you today?" and you go, "Whoa, that's nuts, right? That's not right. Here, let me clue you in." And then your child goes back to school and says, "Oh, my mom or dad says this is all wrong, and you shouldn't be teaching us this, or the information's wrong, or whatever, or the intent is wrong." All hell's going to break loose on the family, right?
Yeah.
You know, you're probably going to end up with a CSA there.
I was waiting in Helen, and I was waiting, and my provider, just like they did to Andre, cut me off. So if you want to call me back, fine, or I'll go.
Oh, she's having problems as well with her communication system. Isn't that a bugger? I made it. I was out of jail, out of my Facebook jail for after 7 days. They let me out for a walk for 2 hours, and I posted a thing about cutting all ties with the UN, and within 2 hours I got another 7 days stint in the Facebook clink. It's getting really bad, man. You know, but see, it always goes back, you know, and I don't know. People don't need to be depressed. They don't need to be fearful because we're the ones with all the power. You know, just remember what Rockefeller said: our window of opportunity won't remain open for too long. Okay, so they know that if we start rising up, they're dead in the water. And this is the whole purpose of everything that's being done by people is to try to get people to lift themselves up a little bit. You know, there's no need for violence. There's no need for huge protests. You know, they're fired a spiritual psychological war at us, which they're getting us through consent. And we will just turn the spiritual psychological war on them and just simply say no. I don't think people understand how powerful that word really is. You know, you get enough people together and you say no, they're dead in the water. Nothing they can do about it. But if you have one individual in a community who says, "Wait a minute, this isn't right," well, they'll jump all over you. Hoping to fear the rest of the people in the community, and make you look like some kind of troublemaker when you're not. Right? You're just trying to help the people in the community.
Yeah.
So how long has this been going on for you?
4 years.
Oh,
since 2014. Yeah.
4 years.
Yeah.
Let's see. They've been after me since. Let's see, 2006. 2006 is when I really started getting pounded on. Well, actually, no, not as. I was getting threats and that, but this is when I was trying to explain to people the fraud of the renewable energy wind farm thing, which
That's funny.
Way back in the 70s.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just going to say
no, it's fine.
Cruiser just went by my house right now. It's the first time I've seen one in weeks.
Really?
yeah, so it really is no coincidence. It's
You don't have like one of those big hands that stick on your front window that you just, I think it's on a spring, and you just hit the hand that waves. You know,
no, they're they're all over my internet.
There's, they really aren't a bright bunch, are they?
No.
You know, and I think
and then they utilize the situation. They'd state to me that I'm not allowed to report a crime unless there's actually a crime being committed, and I'm not to go ahead and bother them unless I have a crime to be reported. You know, when in fact they're the ones that are committing the crime against me.
Right. Well, I mean, all those cops are supposed to have cards on them and that were here. I've never had a cop give me a card, and so I went down to the police station the next day. I called the staff sergeant, went down and met him, and he agreed that the phone call came from the CAO in the mayor's office. He agreed, and I said, "Well, that's a false call. That's against the law. So you should go give them a ticket." "Oh, it's just a misdemeanor." Well, you know what I'd really like is the names of all the officers that were at my house. "Oh, you have to go through Freedom of Information for that." You know, well, they came from here. You sent them from this office to my house. You know who you sent. "Oh, yeah, but I'm not allowed to give out that information. You have to go through Freedom of Information Act, and it'll cost you this much money and take that much time." And you know, they're not what you would call helpful in any way, shape, or form.
No, it's certainly not a peace officer.
No, they're not peace officers. That's the problem. They are policy thugs of company policy. You know, like when they were coming here all the time with the electricity company, they say, "Well, they're here to keep the peace," and I go, "Well, nobody's ever broken the peace, right? Ever."
Mm-hmm.
So
and when it comes to
all you're doing is you're running shotgun for another corporation, right?
That's right. And when it comes down to the plagiarism and the fraud that's being created upon, you know, the birth certificate or whatever it is, that, you know, all that other stuff, they're also falsely impersonating too, because they don't have the right for that copyright use that they're using either. You know what I mean? So if they want us to plagiarize on the name, that's copyright material that belongs to a law society of Upper Canada, when in fact these people are not bar members either, so they don't have any right to go ahead and utilize their copyright stuff either, because I'm pretty sure they don't have permission to go ahead and use it, you know. And anybody that's allowed to speak anything legal or illegal has to be a member of their bar association.
Well, that's what I thought, but, you know, the POA court here, I was absolutely stunned when I found that out. I thought when you go to traffic court, there's what looks like a judge or something sitting on the bench, and it basically runs like a regular courtroom. But I was in there one day, and I had a real idiot sitting on the bench. I mean, he was stupid as a box of rocks. And so I went and looked up his name, and it turns out he's an ex-vice principal. And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. You can't give a legal opinion unless you're a bar member. So how is this guy not giving a legal opinion? So when I phoned the Law Society, even that guy didn't know, right? I mean, like when I told him that the statement on their website was gibberish, he's going, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, it says here it's illegal to practice law without a license, yeah?" He goes, "Well, yeah." And I said, "Well, that's gibberish, because those are two terms that can't be mixed together. They're opposites, polar opposites. Legal and law got nothing to do with one another." And
no, they don't.
No, and I said, "So this is your jargon language going off again, which is the language of the thieves, which is what the corporations are doing to us, thieving from us, and it's there to deceive and gain advantage. So they continually mix these terms that have nothing to do with one another, so that the general public think they mean the same thing, right?"
Yes.
And it took me a good hour and a half to explain it to him. And, I said, you're the typical guy, right? You went to school, they never asked any questions. You just wanted to shut up because the ones that were asking questions were going to be given a hard time. So you just sit there and shut up, and you just go from class to class, grade to grade. You go through, you get your bar card, and never ask one question the whole way through it. So now, my question is, if we just say, okay, we'll just stick with your gibberish sentence for a minute, but it says you can't practice whatever without a license. They're really not licensed, but regardless. The guy at the POA court, when I looked him up, he's not a bar member. He's not a lawyer. He can't give a legal opinion. So how the hell's he sitting there? Unless this isn't really a court, right? But then the Crown attorney there, he's a bar member, but the guy on the bench isn't. And the guy at the Law Society, he says, "Holy crap!" He actually said that. He said, "Holy crap! You know what this means?" Sorta. But then he told me I had to go and I said, "Who is it that appoints these people?" Well, the Chief Justice. Well, is the Chief Justice not a lawyer? Well, yeah. Well, doesn't the Chief Justice know that it's illegal to practice whatever without a license? So how is she appointing these people to give legal opinion?
Yep.
So he was nice enough to give me their direct line, and I phoned, and they said, "Oh, you should phone General Inquiry. They'd be better." They actually said that they'd be better able to answer your questions. I said, "So this is the Chief Justice's office, yes?" And they go, "Yeah." And the Chief Justice's office is telling me that the General Inquiry line is better capable to answer my questions than the Chief Justice's office. Yeah, wrong. The gatekeeping going on is just atrocious. But later, when I called back to the Law Society, I don't know, maybe 6 months later or something, some woman I was talking to said, "Oh, Ron, right? Yeah. You were asking a question about how these guys are sitting on the bench when they're not bar members. I got an answer for you." Great. What's the answer? Well, they were legislated. Okay, so the Law Society is the one that writes the legalese into the rules, regulations, statutes, whatever. So they said that it was okay. The Law Society says you can't practice law without a license. And the same Law Society writes the legalese into something that was passed through the legislature that says while it's illegal to practice law without a license, in the case of POA courts, you don't need a license to give legal opinion. Well, kinda. Oh. Yeah, that's what they did. Yeah. And it's, well, you can't legislate fraud into a legal position, right?
And if you really sit back, Ron, and you have a look at their paperwork when they're doing all this stuff, the one that actually fills out the paperwork, say that brings you into a court, is done so by an officer who has no legal authority whatsoever, is not a bar member or anything of the sort, who's filing out a claim against you, where that individual filing out that claim was never there. They're just going upon the lies and the deceit that's created by whomever attacked you on the side of the highway or wherever the case may be, right?
Yeah.
And then when they make up their paperwork is so full of writing style of deviations all over their paperwork. Say, like in one instance, Ontario will be spelt correctly in the grammatical, correct English language, the way we understand it to be. With a capital O and then lowercase Ontario, and then you'll go down a little bit further, and then you'll see Ontario again. It'll be in all uppercase, and then you might see it somewhere else on the paper. It'll be all uppercase, but the words will be spaced apart a little further, these are writing style deviations, and you might see your birth date on there. It'll be 170405, and then you'll see in a different instance it'll be 050417, and they keep switching it up all over the place like this, right? These are called writing style deviations.
Right.
So I can pretty much guarantee you that the paperwork that you're holding in your hand, which would be called the discovery that they give you to aid and abet you into their fraud, and then when you go into their church, into their courthouse, the judge will be holding some kind of a record of what's going on, but it'll be totally different from what you have in your hand. And that in itself is a clear and distinct fraud of what's going on in there. You know, there's deviations. They're just all over the place. And it's so plain to see, but everybody's so scared all the time that they don't recognize any of this stuff. You know, it's just like, oh my God, I'm so freaked out. And, you know, the adrenaline rushing and,
Yeah.
That's something that's not taught to anybody on a regular basis.
Well, this is the other thing. This is the other thing, right? If ignorance is no excuse in law, then it would only stand to reason that law would be a main subject from grade school on, right? To make sure that the population is not ignorant. But the point is, they need you ignorant, right? That's why they don't teach you, because it's a jargon language, which is the language of the thieves, and they stole you, right? When you registered and you became a legal entity, they stole you.
Yeah,
right. So, they took you from your parents and turned you into a commercial entity for their benefit. Well, they wouldn't want to teach you that in school because nobody would put up with it.
Yep.
You know.
Yep. So I'm guessing the judge at the time that when I was in their secret little court, he was my master at that particular time, him and the Crown Attorney. They were my masters and I was their slave, and they can do whatever they want with me, right? And because I kept telling them, it's quite obvious you're going to do whatever you want with me anyway, you know. So, you know, there's no rule of law going on anywhere in here. I see a bunch of people who are, you know.
Well, see, that's why I still want to. Well, that's why I still want to make out a cardboard or you know, a cardboard cutout, and then print it with an accused on it. Because I would just love to walk in the court. I was trying to get Farmer George to do that, and you know, I just, you know, because when you're just standing there, and they say, you know, you're Andre, right? And they've got you tagged, but they can't. They have no capacity with a man. So my attitude is, well, okay, we'll bring two of them in, right? Bring the live man and bring in their entity, their fiction. And you say, you know, like, are you Andre? Well, I'm the son of my parents, yeah. But this is who you're looking for over here because this is what you created. It's flat, it's dead, it's a fiction. That's what you created. That's what you have authority over. So, you know, give him a ticket, right? You know,
yeah,
you should actually have one in your car when you're driving around. You know, you get pulled over and it says like, "Can I see your license?" And you can lean over to your fictional cardboard cutout friend there and say, "You want to give me your license?" Right? Because that's who that's who was licensed. You weren't licensed.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
You know, so if you want to handcuff him, fill your boots. You want to give him a ticket, fill your boots, right? But I always wanted to do that in court. Just put the two people up there and say, okay, now we've separated ourselves, right? Because they have this thing, you know, that's while separate, they're indivisible. Well, that's legal jargon again, right? You can't be separate and indivisible. That's an impossibility. And this is what they do. You are totally separate. You're alive. It's dead. Okay, but then they try to tell you that you're all one piece. right? You know, you're the agent of. Well, if I'm the agent, where's my paycheck? Right? If I'm toting this thing around with me, where's my paycheck?
That's right.
When you deal with
that's
the
a lot of money.
Well, when the judge deals with it, the lawyer deals with it, the courts deal with it, the school board deals with it, the municipality deals, they're all getting a paycheck for dealing with that dead entity.
That's right.
And you never get a paycheck for it.
No, right? And rightfully so. If they're going to be operating you as an employee of the state, then that's a whole lot of back pay from, you know, say like when you got your license from when you were 16 and 50 now.
Yeah.
So if I'm operating in agency, then you know, that's a lot of money.
It's the same thing with your house, right? Okay.
Yeah.
You know, you have the right of enjoyment of the property. Well, the property itself is just a piece of paper. That's all it is. It's a I can't come up with the exact term. But it's just another concept. And
well, it says right on there, Ron, that you're a tenant.
Yeah. But you have the right of enjoyment of the property. You can fix it up. You can do this and that and other thing. Well, you know, if I have the right of enjoyment, I don't like cutting the lawn, and I don't like shoveling all this snow.
No.
So I should be billing the municipality for my labor for the upkeep of what they own. Because I don't own the land the house is sitting on, and I don't own the house. All I own is a piece of paper saying that I have the right of enjoyment, and I have the right to pay taxes, and I have the right to pay this, that, and the other damn thing. So they should be billed for our labor. They bill us for their labor. How exactly we don't bill them for our labor? You know,
if you don't cut your lawn here in the community, they'll send you a bill for over like $220, and then they'll send somebody from the town to come and cut it while you go and pay that $220 to have your lawn cut. When in actuality, what you just said, because we're living inside their legal fiction corporate jurisdiction, it is their responsibility. Any and all things are their responsibility.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, if you own it, and they do, they own everything that's sitting on that piece of ground you think is yours. They own it. So if they own it, then they're responsible for the upkeep of it. The only thing we have access to is a piece of paper. Well, we could go dust a piece of paper off once in a while for free, I suppose. But the actual physical labor that's taken place on this land and around the house, they own it because it's registered to them. And and they've conned you into being their what would you call it? Their handyman, their groundskeeper, for free. Well, it's not even volunteer. You got to pay taxes in that, so you're paying for the privilege. You're paying for the privilege of upkeeping their land.
That's right.
God, we're stupid.
Another good example of around here, when you get a speeding ticket on it, you get pulled over for speeding, what they call speeding anyway, and then they'll extort you for money. And then on the ticket, it says that you got to pay this fine towards, say, like the city of Thunder Bay, which is a private corporation. Now, why are you paying a private corporation money? Why? You know, why did you pull me over and extort this money out of me? And now you're telling me I have to pay a private corporation? The city of Thunder Bay? You know, I'm hundreds of miles away from this place, and you're telling me I have to pay a city of Thunder Bay money because I was what you call speeding a couple of kilometers over this corporate posted speed limit on a highway that we pay for. You know?
Well, you know,
and then it affects you all the way through in your insurance and everything else.
Well, it's all attached, isn't it? It's all, everything they do, they sell you everything on the idea of safety. Everything that comes through the legislature pretty much is based on the idea of safety. But when you take a really close look at it, safety actually just means revenue stream. That's all they're creating is new revenue streams for themselves. We have the next town down the road from us here, about 30 miles, in the next county. That really brought it out. was that the municipal council was ticked off at the police because they weren't writing enough tickets. And they said that the revenue coming from the tickets is the only real positive cash flow the municipality has, right? And so that's all the tickets are is cash flow, right? If you didn't hurt somebody while you're going down the road, then how in the hell did you break a law? Do no harm is the rule. You didn't harm anybody. You got harmed because the highwayman pulled you over. But you know what I found out? You know what I found out was what I found out was when a cop pulls you over, they generally ask you if you know how fast you were going. And I just tell them straight out, like, you know how fast you were going? Yeah, 100. Well, do you know what the speed limit is? No. What do you mean? Well, I don't know what the speed limit is, so I'm glad you pulled me over so we can figure out what the speed limit is. Well, what's it say on the sign? Well, the sign ain't got nothing to do with the speed limit. The speed limit's your discretion, not the sign's discretion. So now that you got pulled me over and I got to come through this neck of the woods once in a while, I don't want to get a ticket. So we need to establish what the speed limit in this particular district is, because they bounce all over the place. One district you can do 110. Another district you can do 100. Another district you can do 105, right? They got their own numbers set out there. They got nothing whatsoever to do with the speed limit or the sign. The sign is just a piece of tin with a number on it. So the one cop there, he told me, he's been a cop for a long time. Never had anybody say they were glad that they were pulled over. So, he asked me how fast. I said I was doing 100. We talked for a while, and I said, so what are we going to expect to see? What are we going to do here? He said, well, I'm not giving you 110. I said, well, that's fine. It's your neck of the woods. What's the number? And he says, well, I'll give you 100. Well, fine. That's how fast I was going. And I tell him, I said, so go write down the particulars of the vehicle, license number, color, make, model, year, and send it out to the rest of your guys so that when I come through here, I don't have to worry about getting pulled over, because they know that we've got the established speed limit of 100. And I've had several cops do that, and it works fine, because that sign's got nothing to do with anything,
No.
It's just their marker for, the cops always do that. So I'll back it up a little bit, right, for you, so I'm a nice guy. Well, no, you still robbed me, right?
Yeah.
You're a more pleasant robber. Is that what you're saying? A more pleasant thief.
And it's funny that you're on this thing about a driver's license a bit here too, is because the last time I went and I signed my shit. Pardon me, my language, always a bit of a different way than just putting my name on there. And the last time I went in to get my driver's license last year, I asked, how many of these signatures are you going to require me to give you for this fraud? And she stated, well, there's probably quite a many, but because I know you and I like you, I'm just going to make you do one. So I said, okay, I'll agree to that. So I signed one, and I put my whatever I write down on there. And then I said, what do you do with your paperwork when you get it? I said, where does it all go? I said, do you keep that stuff? Do you keep it on file somewhere? And she said, no, we shred it. I said, wait a minute here. I said, you get to come in here and,
I love that question. This is good.
And we pay for a driver's license where you're aiding and abetting us into a situation that's bringing us into a corporate legal fiction, and then with your information you shred it, so when we go back out onto the highway and then we get pulled over by some of these entities, the moment that they ask us for that driver's license back, that's a recontract into that situation, and they don't need their paperwork as long as we hand ours over. We're recontracting. And she said, yes, absolutely, that's exactly what it is.
Okay.
So I said, well, that's very interesting. So
But see,
So,
that's
and
why
that was
that's why it's imperative that everybody ask questions all the time, right?
Yeah.
You know, because if you don't ask questions, you can't learn anything.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So this stuff do you fill out to renew your driver's license and that? They just shred it.
Yeah. All that paperwork, yeah, they shred it, yeah. And then probably just have that one file on the computer that would bring up your legal fiction identity and whatever other things are associated in your legal fiction, where they're going to have the body you standing there to identify with, right?
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, this idea, you know, well, I've identified him as so and so, right?
And the picture
that's
on
another
there is
total
just
fraud, because you can't, you know, that's like saying that there's the same entity when they're not, right? They can't identify you and with the legal fiction because you're not it, you know. So remember when I was telling you about what Farmer George did in the court the last time he was in there? I think that's pretty brilliant. When he went in there and presented himself as the attorney of record. So they couldn't, I don't know what happened, because you got all these weird entities, right? They're all fictional entities. So, you know, the attorney of record is a fictional entity. So when George presented himself to the court as the attorney of record, even though they know that that's George Bothwell, the farmer, they didn't say anything to him about it. And so then he is now the attorney of record, not George Bothwell. And he just simply asked, or said that he was there on business regarding Mr. Bothwell, which is a fictional entity. Now that he's totally separated these two things, there's no confusion here. This is the attorney of record, and he's there on behalf of Mr. Bothwell, who was charged. And I know what they do in our courts here. They'll say, well, okay, Mr. Bothwell's not here, put out a warrant, when he's standing right in front of them, right?
Yep.
Which is ludicrous, but it's like a bad comedy, right? But it's still really strange what happened there, because when George said, well, if there's no business for Mr. Bothwell here today, I guess I'll leave. And they said, well, we just as soon you didn't. And he said they were so meek about it, it was ridiculous, right? And he started to leave. He had an earpiece in his ear from the court, as he's old, and he come back and put the earpiece down and looked at the court. He said, there's like deer caught in the headlights, right? And he bid them adieu and walked out of the court, and then the charges were withdrawn. Because I'm absolutely convinced that we can separate, right? That's why I like the idea of a cardboard cutout, because that is the legal entity. It's dead. It's a piece of paper. It ain't real, right?
Yeah.
You know, like they say, well, you know, you know, I told a cop or somebody one time. I said, you know, I can't. You know, the holder of the license can't go get me some milk at the store, right? I can't because the license is issued to Crown property. It is Crown property, and it's issued to a Crown entity. I can't tell the one who has the license, the all caps fiction. I can't tell it to go down to the store, grab the car, and go down to the store and get me some milk.
Yeah.
You're going to be a long time waiting for some milk, right? So you know, the whole trick here is just to separate this completely out. You know, I think when I first read that was something to do with the Queen. It said that Elizabeth, the woman, and the Queen, or the title, I guess, which are separate yet indivisible, right? Okay, so people think they mix these terms again, right? They interact these or switch out these terms all the time. You know, if you say the Queen, well, the Queen means Elizabeth. If you say Elizabeth, it means the Queen, right? Well, one's living, one's dead. They got no connection there whatsoever. Yet by continually mixing these words together, people think they mean the same thing, which they don't. You know, Elizabeth, doesn't matter how you cut it, she's just like any other living, breathing woman. And the Queen,
that's right,
is nothing, right? You know, it's just a corporate
entity. It's very
important
to know that. That's right, yeah.
But that's what they've done with us as well, right? They take the two, the living and the dead, and they say they're the same. Well, they're not the same, you know. And I think what really irritates me the most is the graveyard. You know, your mother is coerced or seduced into signing you to the state, registering to the state for benefits. So you got your mom laying there in the hospital bed, and they come in, they go, you know, if you register your child, we just need to sign these papers, and then your child will get, you know, free health care, free education. You'll get baby bonus for help, you know, buy diapers or whatever for the child. Aren't we nice? Oh, that is nice. Oh, you know, sign here. So then they go and they plagiarize your name. They take it from your God-given upper lowercase name and then all cap it. And that's plagiarism. That's literary theft, and it's fraud. And plagiarism says the stealing of a child or a slave through seducing, which they did to our mothers. So right out of the gates, these guys are involved in a huge fraud. And we need to really, really deal with that, right? Because if we don't, nothing's going to change. You know,
and that's right, and that's the plagiarism. See, I was just reading a little thing here while I'm listening to you, and it says you're automatically deemed a thief if you claim anything and everything that has a name that you claim fraudulently as yours on a registration or ownership. And the courts and police can and will steal what you think belongs to you, but aren't, and actually are only reclaiming what was willfully given to the crown. I mean, when you, just like you said, when you go in and you sign that registration, that's it. You just handed over what you hardly earned for yourself.
Well, you gave them control of it, right?
That's
you
right.
Gave them control of it, and
that's what registration is. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's and they use that jargon language to deceive you and take advantage of you. Oh, I guess. What do you say? It's let's see, what is it? 20 after 1, basically. Is it okay if I bring Helen? Is she biting at the bit here?
Yeah, you go right ahead, Ross.
We'll just bring her in for a bit, and there's something that we're talking about that's driving her nuts or something. Well, I think she was a teacher at one point. And what I'm finding out from some of these retired teachers is they are mad as bees now, because they legitimately believed that they were doing good, yeah. And then once they got out and started looking around and started asking some questions, and they don't have to be fearful anymore, because they're not part of the system anymore as far as the school system goes. They're madder than hell. I mean, they're really ticked off.
That's awesome.
And this is a good thing, but you know, if we could just connect. That's our big problem right now. How to connect the older folks with the younger folks. You know, they seem to have the two parties so totally separated now. It's going to be difficult. And I do talk to students as often as I can, and they seem to be starting to ask questions. They 8 years ago, 5 years ago, when I talked to them, they really didn't seem to have much of a clue. But now, one of my favorite questions that I just continue to use over the years is, do you realize your teachers are lying to you? Now, even 5 years ago, the students would look at me like, what? They wouldn't do that. And as of late, I say to the students, you realize the teachers are lying to you? And they just look at me in relief and go, well, yeah, right? So, propaganda only can last so long, right? And I think the kids are starting to understand there's something very wrong going on here, but they still don't have the strength to stand up. And I think that's where it takes some older folks to encourage that kind of thing.
Because I believe they don't know. They know that there's a fraud being committed, but nobody really knows exactly how it's being done.
Right.
They like to go around screaming it, but to go in depth and explain how it's being done is a different story.
And it's kind of weird. We went and put some posters up around town one time, and I don't even remember what it was about. It wasn't anything too wild. It was just some information, right? On the tack boards and all around town. And those things were removed so fast, it was nuts, right? I don't know who's taking them down, but usually you put something on a tack board, it stays there. This stuff was disappearing basically as fast as you could put it up. I don't know if it was the local constabulary or who the hell was doing it. School teachers, no idea. Anyways, I think we have Helen on board here. Do we, Helen?
Yes.
How are you, my
Ron,
dear?
and hi, Andre.
Hello.
I have the same telephone issues as you as well, Andre. I found out this week from a very intelligent individual. Her father was an orthopedic surgeon. He spoke 3 languages, Japanese, Chinese, and German. And she was born in Manchuria, which is now southern China. And the reason why Japan occupied Manchuria or southern China was because of the need to because of the Bolshevik Revolution, which I had not known. I had only studied a little bit about Germany. Her dad just passed away recently, and she's a very well-read individual. And she said that the brutality, what her father just told her near the end of his life, and the atrocities of the Bolsheviks is beyond imagination. So that's an area that I'm certainly going to look into. Another area that she understood, she's afraid to come to Canada. She looked into Monica Schaefer's situation, and she said she well understood. She knows Canada quite well, and she said that she wrote the name Sinclair down, or she mentioned the name Sinclair to me, and I said, well, that's the maiden name of Margaret Trudeau. And she said, yes, that's right. Did you know that Sinclair's migrated, she was a Mason, they were Masons, and they migrated to Canada, and that the next foundation, that they were supposed to set up a foundation for communism state in Canada, and his grandchildren has the satanic mission to make this happen. And it is up to us as Canadians to remove him from government, because our time is ticking, and we must stop this satanic bloodshed before it gets even wilder than it is today. So I was quite intrigued with this and felt that you had to know this. As you said that I was a teacher, or am still a teacher.
I like that better. Still a teacher.
Okay. And she also gave me and suggested I should read an article. And she knows that I am pretty smart as what... and I have some skills, like there's another chap that we sometimes deal with, and he thinks his ego gets in the way, and he doesn't certainly want to listen to any women that may know a little bit more than than what they do. Or likewise, I've learned the skill to listen very well because she's a little bit younger than I am, but she's well versed in understanding Germany, and she seems to understand what happened in Japan and Manchuria and China, which I had no clue of because it's all been hidden in our history. As you know, I was a teacher for 15 years in the system, was ousted by the system because I taught in a very intriguing and genuine way. There's a Dr. George, this article was given to me by her, and she says, we are born creative geniuses, and the education system dumbs us down according to NASA scientists. This is December 16th, 2017, by COERT, Engels, ENGELS. The writer of I haven't had time to look at the video, and I guess it's on TEDx, but I sometimes question them. But
I wouldn't get too close to TEDx.
Nor should you get too close to YouTube because it's owned by the same people as well.
I understand that. Yeah.
Okay. So I don't go to TEDx very often, but I have to go to YouTube, and Vimeo probably is one of the better ones.
Right.
So anyway, Dr. George Land drops a bombshell when he told his audience shocking results of creativity tests developed by NASA in regarding to school testing. He did a NASA project which was highly specialized, and in regard to measures the creative potential of NASA's future rocket scientists and engineers. The scientists were left with a few questions. Where does creativity come from? Are some people born with it, or is it learned, or is it experienced? What they found out is that the scientists then gave a test to 1,600 children between the ages of 4 and 5. What they found out was shocking. A full 98% of the children were classed as geniuses. They did another longitudinal study at 10 years old, 5 years later. 30% of the children now fell from the genius category. Then they did another test at 15 years old, and it was 12%. Sadly, then about adulthood, we sadly dropped down to 2%. So what I'm telling people, and I have told them consistently, whether it be on my Facebook page or whether it be meeting people in public, is to remove your children from the Zionist, Rockefeller, establishment, education system, because it is robbing us. I learned more. I went to public school, a government school, one-room schoolhouse at the age of 6.5. I learned more about a variety and understanding and caring and balance of my environment, and learned how the Creator created the variety, not the diversity that Justin Trudeau is trying to impose on us.
Well, I think the one-room schoolhouse, and I never went to one. My wife went to one. And Michael Schmidt, the milk farmer that had been beaten over the last 25 years, they opened up the old schoolhouse. And when I went to the schoolhouse that Michael's people are running, it was just basically, as I saw it, is what you have is you have children from basically kindergarten, grade 1 up through grade 8. And there's a huge connection there, and the learning capacity of the children, because they're in the same room with higher grades, I think it's a much better environment.
Well, it may be a stepping stone, but my children went. It is nothing compared to the unschooling and the free learning that needs to take place at home in a loving, caring, reflective, bonding a relationship. They
Yeah,
bond. They take away the bonding even before when the children are born. And I am into I would have, if I had a child today, boy, I would have it at home. I wouldn't have where they give you epidurals, where they give you, in Ontario they do, where they scratch the child's foot and bleed the child's foot to get the whatever. Trauma galore. Tell your child that he has jaundice. Take the child away from them. Give them shots or whatever. And then, they traumatize them. And I know that this takes place. And there's nothing in the system that is beneficial to us. It continues with this article. In order for the so-called elite to maintain their lavish lifestyle of overt luxury, where they contribute the least but enjoy the most, they understand that children must be dumbed down and brainwashed to accept and even serve the rapacious system of artificial scarcity, unending exploitation, and incessant war.
And now, if you look at
that was very well said.
I love etymology, and if you look up kindergarten in etymology, it will likely blow your mind, because this was when they started bringing public school systems, right? And it's not nice, right? And it's basically to grow these things like plants for the benefit, right? And that's the whole school system. You're raised by them to benefit them, right, and submit to them from the time you go into kindergarten until you come out the other end. So I tell people, a lot of people have their university certificates hung on their wall, right? And I said, you shouldn't look at that as a positive thing, but in reality, a negative thing is what it is, because you were stupid enough to stay in that system that long, right?
Oh,
so it's not a certificate of intelligence. Mm-hmm. It's a certificate of stupidity, right? Because they put you in these little narrow bands. You may be fairly intelligent on a particular subject, but you don't know what the purpose of the subject was. But your overall knowledge is so narrow, you're stupid, right?
Exactly. Okay, I know that when I went back to get my master's, but I had done the work on myself that I needed to do, and I was the model for young people of how to question authority, how to question the gatekeepers. I went right up to the to the top guy at the university. They wanted, and the board of directors wanted to get rid of me.
No doubt.
And they wanted me to go to Toronto. Well, Toronto's not going to be any better than University of Calgary. And if anything, more Marxism, more fascism.
Right.
Anyway, he goes, Dr. George Land says, we have the ability to be at 98% if we want to. From what they found from the studies with children and from how the brain works, there are two kinds of thinking. One is divergent, that creates imagination and accelerates the ascension of knowledge, where the other is convergent, which makes judgment and criticizing and negativity in that. So we have to know, like I know when I was studying myself, they always stressed, know where your thinking is happening in your brain, whether it be in the reptile brain or the front lobe or whatever it was. But we have little or no awareness of ourselves and our actions and our bodies. We stop talking at a very young age because they stop the crazy making of our education system, the crazy making which I looked at the Bell Canada toolkit. It's full of BS, that toolkit for mental health.
Did you look at that?
I read the whole thing.
Yeah, so did I. Is that some seriously dangerous stuff or what?
It's absolutely dangerous. It's brainwashing. It's conditioning. It's narrow. It's weak rather than limitless possibilities. And I went through that whole thing today to talk to you about it on the phone. If you didn't, it's absolutely erroneous. Well, as a matter of fact, if you looked up Bell. Let's talk. First of all, talking is like about the weather. It has no meat. It has no meaning. It is so different than communicating or sharing dialogue. Talk. What, we're going to talk about the weather, what I bought at the store? Is that going to change your thinking or go develop in your, in your convergent thinking? None of this. All this, it's a bunch of garbage. It made me so sick when I listened to it, and it's all exactly what teachers are taught at university.
Right, and
when you look at the two L's in Bell, I remember we have to look at symbology. Apparently, that's the two L's are the what is it called? The two. What is it called? What is it called? I had it in my mind. Phallic. It's a phallic symbol.
And fallacy. Phallic symbol.
Yeah, the two L's.
Yeah.
Another
that makes very much sense.
Can I mention one more thing? I think that one good author that I connected to this week, and he wrote a story about Justin Trudeau, is far more dangerous than Donald Trump. It's 48 pages, and his name is Jonathan Keeland, K-N-E-E-L-A-N-D. He's from Winnipeg. You can get his. He's at newscenter.ca. And then it goes, Justin Trudeau is far more dangerous than Donald Trump. I think he just, and I think that compared to the mainstream media, one should definitely connect and read his articles. They are absolutely outstanding.
Is that the article you sent me?
I don't know. Justin Trudeau is more dangerous than Donald Trump?
I think so, because I sent you a note back, and I had to trash that thing because it was written, one, badly, and two, it was pushing an agenda that we don't want to. It said in there that Christopher Hitchens, warned us that we were going to end up in a police state. Well, that wasn't a warning. That was a notice, because he went to the same school as Bob Rae, and Bob Rae's father, which is the Balliol School, or whatever they call it, at Oxford, which is a Marxist school. And Hitchens is a Marxist. It wasn't a warning to look out for. It was a statement. It was a Marxist statement that we're going to end up in a police state. And then he made another mention to George Bush, put George W. Bush up as a good American. Well, it was George W. Bush that said, it'd be easier if I was a dictator. It would be easier to get done what we want to do if this was a dictatorship, as long as I'm the dictator. So yeah, I wasn't very happy.
I don't know if that's the same article. I know that it comes from Winnipeg. We have to be very careful. I looked at it. Some of the comments.
Winnipeg is a very, very nefarious place.
I know about that. My lawyer that I'm dealing with, he called me up, and I said, "Well, you're in the den of the or whatever it's called, of the beast." And anyway, of course, this week or whatever, I find out that now he doesn't want. He really thinks I should go and get another lawyer. Yeah.
Well, my My lawyer said to me he can't help me, and then he told me to write the book. Right.
That's right.
Because a lot of these lawyers know what they're involved in. You know, I was in a court one time.
This lawyer is, almost my age. And then don't call me if you're going to jerk me around, because I'm not going to be jerked around. And then I asked for the policies and the oaths. And he knows, that I'm delving into it deeply. The one thing I want to know is I want to go higher than the DOJ. There is somebody you can go that is not within, say, the association or Upper Canada, Law Society or whatever. There's somebody you can go to, either a secretary or who should I go to that's over and above the DOJ? Because we know they're all corrupt.
Well, yeah, and who's above that?
Well, who do you go to?
Who would be above? You're talking about the Department of Justice.
Yeah, who do you go to? Who do you write a letter to?
Well, a good question. Who do you write a letter to?
I heard about who you do it in the States, but I can't find the piece of paper I wrote it on, and I'll find it this
like
week.
Here, I mean, above the Department of Justice, I guess would be the Lieutenant Governor or the Governor General, who are the Queen in place, because the Department of Justice is the Justice Department of the corporation known as Canada or Ontario or whatever it is, wherever you're at. And the Lieutenant Governor in the province is the Queen in place. But the problem is that the DOJ is the protection for the Crown. Mm-hmm. And if you look at what the Queen is, okay, because Elizabeth's just a woman. The Queen is at the top of the legal, which is a justice system, the legal and the political system, which are both corporate. So, I guess one would write to the Lieutenant Governor, but I guess you would have to write that to the woman in Ontario. And the problem with the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario is the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario came from the UN, and she was mentored by Maurice Strong, and she was head of the United Nations Environmental Program. She's the head of before she became the Lieutenant Governor, she was the CEO of Nuclear Waste globally, and she's up here in my neck of the woods pushing the Deep Geological repository for nuclear waste, which they want to bury right on the edge of Lake Huron. And so she's a crazy lunatic. So, the Governor General, who now is a space cadet, who probably has the IQ of a rock. So who do you write to? I don't know,
I also came across a piece of paper from Alberta, Final Report 2005 of Justice Minister Ron Stevens. Well, I used to, just many years ago, sort of followed him. It was interesting. All these ministers went to Cambridge University in England to discuss legal issues on national and international scale, and also dealing with issues of the charter rights and freedoms. And they always throw in the miscarriage of justice and the international tribunals and best practices. When I see on the last page they discussed civil, common, and Sharia law, 3 laws in one country. So obviously they were thinking of putting that in then. And then on Thursday, 7th from 2:05, they discussed Canada, United States of America. Is it a system of laws or a system of politics? And I believe Beverly McLaughlin went there. She discussed, this was interesting, And the Honorable Beverly McLaughlin, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Canada, discussed the history and the evolution of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and her feelings that they will be increased significance of Section 7 when interpreting court matters. That section states an individual has rights to life, liberty, and security of the person, and the right not to be deprived thereof.
Right, but that's the person, that's the corporate entity, that's not you.
That person, the key word that I didn't circle.
Right, so
right.
That's
the key word.
Right.
Person.
There's nothing
the definition of the words is very important.
I was looking for life and liberty and security. And
it sounds good. It sounds good till you run into the word person, right? And security of the person. That's what the person really is a security, right? They buy and sell it, and they borrow money against it, and they attach you to it, and you're liable for the debt that was created by this fictional character.
That's right, as well as the word individual or human, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, unless you're using the term man or woman, those are the only two terms that are possible to use: is a man or a woman. Anything else outside of that is a fraud.
I don't know if you noticed recently, Trudeau was out west there somewhere in British Columbia, and he was sitting down in a little forum. It looked like a gymnasium of a school or something, and there was a woman in there that was asking a question to Justin Trudeau as he's standing on the center of the floor, and she was posing a very, very good question. I can't recall what it was exactly about, but she had used the term mankind, and as soon as she used the term mankind, he corrected her immediately and said, "We don't use that definition or term anymore. We use person kind." And he had her ejected.
People kind.
People kind, yeah, and he had her ejected.
Yeah, he had her thrown out. Yeah.
Didn't throw her out.
But even so, I mean, mankind is another fraud, because as soon as you add something to a word, you change the meaning of the word. And if you look up kind, it's a sort of, a type of, right? It's not. You've changed the definition of it. So, and people is more along the line of cattle. It's a very people is actually a very derogatory term.
Right.
They when they sent our forefathers over here, it was to people the land so that they could make claim to it. Right. It's the language that we were taught. That's why I love etymology so much. And that's why I like the KJV Bible.net so much as well, is because if you take, I just use an old Webster's and an etymology in the KJV. And when I looked at the KJV Bible.net, which I like because it's just a search engine, right? You can put any term in there, and it'll just search and bring up any passages. And when I found out that in the Bible there's no such word as legal and there's no such word as human, right? There's also no such word as dinosaur. All of these terms were made up when they started to move the evolutionary deal, right?
I took one course in university on law. I think I needed it, or I don't know. It intrigued me. I didn't learn a thing. Absolutely nothing. So why in frig do I take a course in law?
Well,
to become dumber, and brainwashed. Another thing I learned this week when reading about wills and estates is my husband, who passed away, he did a will. But when I look at the will and the trust is totally made up, directed by the lawyer, so that it cannot be accountable. You can't have, or apparently you cannot have, say, a forensic auditor in looking at it, and it's made so that she or he, the lawyer, hides everything, and then the person who's the executor can't do it very much anyway. Maybe they're too stupid to even question this. Anyway, I don't know about wills, but they have to, and as far as capacity goes, of the person who writes the will, and then the control, we're dumber and dumber all the time, and they do not address, just like they do in courts, where they will not address drugs, they will not address finance, they will not address doctors. It's all best practices, which is what? Killing and hurting people?
Yes.
It's just insane what we have to go through.
Well, the whole thing, as far as I am concerned, goes back to the divine right of kings, which was we were still in law, and the kings, queens, whatever, only had the right to rule as long as they stayed in law. And as soon as they left law, and I don't know the passages, numbers, or anything, but a friend of mine in Alberta who has studied this forever, somewhere in Deuteronomy basically says, do not add to or take away from my law. Mm-hmm. And once the king, they took an oath, okay, to the Creator to run with the law. And as soon as they went away from that law, they moved into tyranny. And we've been in tyranny ever since, because we went from law to legal, right? And attorney turned from one lord to another. And so the whole system is a satanic system because it's adversarial. And if you look up the word adversary, you run into the word Satan. Yep. So we got on the wrong road, and we're paying the penalty for it. And the other passage I really like is, take heed no man deceive you. Well, we were deceived. And we got to deal with that deception. And, we should have... the UN has all of these days. They have a day for everything. We should have a kick Satan in the nuts day or something, right? Because it doesn't matter what people believe or don't believe. There's no the only possible explanation really for a creator is most few people feel it. And if you look around, you can obviously understand that all of these different varieties of trees even all evolved. If there was an evolution, we'd have all the same basic tree. So it's the evolution side is the side that got you to. The whole idea of evolution was to get you to worship the creation, not the creator. And they got us off track. So, we've been deceived, and this is the position we find ourselves in. See, in the old days, when the Queen took an oath, this oath that the Queen took now is that she will hold to the law of the book that she took the oath on, which is the King James Bible, to uphold the law within, but then and then she says, to the best of her ability.
That's
the out, right?
That's right.
So,
Law language.
So the Queen is not the ruler standing in law. The Queen is at the head of the political and legal systems, which are both corporate. And it says over and over and over in the Bible, or in the King James Bible, that God doesn't have any respect for persons, and we're not supposed to have any respect for persons. And yet we live our lives as persons.
Now,
so we wonder why things are bad. We haven't stood up.
Do you know if we really do in Canada have a constitution?
There's no constitution here. That's a corporate document.
That's a falsity. Yeah.
There's no. Well, no. Yeah. I mean, the legislature came because our forefathers wouldn't listen to the governors and that of the Hudson's Bay Company. That's the only reason we got a legislature. It's no different than the East India Company, the Plymouth Company, Virginia Company. These are all chartered companies. And so when our our forefathers started running into the Hudson's Bay people, and the Hudson's Bay people were telling them what they can and can't do, our forefathers looked at the Hudson's Bay Company and said, like, what are you, an idiot? We don't work for you. You can't tell us what to do. That's when they went back to England and said, you know, they don't want to listen to us. So we heard you got this legislature thing going. How's that working out? Basically great, because they don't get it, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so then they said they gave us...
Question everything. Intelligent radio for intelligent people. UCY.TV.